intro is the most awkward part. I never know how to do it. All right. Hello, my name is Victor Lee, and this is my friend Jake Steffes, who is a talented engineer and currently working for
Wampler Pedals.
Yes. But this is a January Q&A, and I had my special guest answering special questions. So let's get right to it. Question number 1, does Wampler make their own design or make derivations of existing designs?
Oh. I would say kind of a little bit of both. I think if we only did derivations of existing designs, we'd be finishing products a lot quicker. No, some of them we do completely from scratch, like Terraform was completely from scratch. But it's kind of a mix. It depends on what people want as a sound, I think. So if people want a particular kind of sound, we're going to make that. But we also, I think we get bored pretty easily, so we're not going to like copy and paste a circuit and say we're done with it. We're going to play around with it a lot,
right.
and see what we can do with it, and see if we can get the sound that we want to come out of it as a product, and as well as that, whatever features like switching or weird jacks or expression, whatever we can add to it that people would want, we'll try to do that.
So do you guys tend to like read a lot of forums and like kind of respond to?
Yeah, Brian's definitely on the forums a lot more than I am. I'm in the lab just like toiling away. But yeah, it's kind of a mix of both. But we really enjoy the design process. It's something that we have a lot of fun with. So we're probably never going to just like take a pedal and just say this is ours. It's not really any fun.
Excellent. All right. Next question.
What else we got?
What all impacts noise, floor noise in your signal chain, and how can you minimize that?
Ooh, floor noise in your signal chain. Well, you've kind of got two ways to go about that. You have like your whole system. If you take your guitar through your pedals to your amp, there's like a lot of things that could be the problem there if you have a lot of floor noise. Right. Anytime you amplify something, so actually if you start with the amplifier at the very end, that's amplifying a tiny little signal from your guitar into something that can like fill stadiums, so to speak. So that's a lot of amplification. So you have any little noise, that's getting amplified, that's going to be heard, 100-fold. So if you have like any sort of pedal or something in between that's boosting your signal up, that's going to also boost any noise. So what would be imperceptible on its own gets like magnified a bunch. So that's why you want to have good gear, I bet.
Excellent marketing.
Excellent marketing. Have some good gear. I guess when it comes to like individual products, what is good gear? When it comes to noise, when it comes to like a circuit design in a product, you want to avoid unnecessary level changes. So you don't want to like boost something up a bunch in a circuit and then only to cut it later if you don't need to, because then you're just boosting a bunch of noise for no reason.
Right.
And then like a good layout, a good circuit board layout is crucial.
Yep.
So just like quality design that doesn't really affect the sound of things dramatically, other than that noise floor, but just making sure that the construction is good, that the design is good.
So does that mean like, is it more important to kind of emphasize on that factor on like a certain designs versus others? So say like if you're designing like a delay or like a reverb or something, it doesn't really take up that much like a noise floor, I guess. Like in terms of like creating.
Yeah, well I guess that's a different thought, is that you'll get different noises. Well, any sort of a delay and reverb is actually is like almost a noise machine, because if you input a signal into your delay or your reverb and it has just a little bit of noise in it, with the delay, for example, you put that input signal in and it comes back around and it like loops and feeds back into itself. So that little bit of noise will start to add up just a little bit. So you can actually add a lot of noise with a delay. So you want to make sure that your signal going into your delay is, as noise free as you can get. And then a reverb is really just a ton of delays. I'm really like, my hands are so big here. So I'm gonna bring these back. A reverb is going to be a combination of a bunch of delays. So any noise into a reverb is going to get very, very noisy on the output if you're not careful kind of with that design. So everything creates noise, if that's any comfort to you. Yeah, there's no escaping it.
Wow. Awesome.
Did that answer your question? What was your question?
It kind of did, yeah. Okay. I was asking like if there's like a particular type of pedal that you need to be extra careful.
Oh yeah,
with
all of them. Yeah. So any drives, distortions, delays, reverbs. Chorus is actually pretty fine. You're not really doing much there. Any sort of phaser pedal, that's fine. Wahs are great, actually. Wahs and auto wahs, because they actually filter a lot of stuff out.
Oh, so you don't have to worry as much.
So you're actually cutting some noise, so you may notice your signal gets a little less noisy with the wah.
Interesting. I never thought about that, actually.
Except when you have it really high.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Next question. What are your thoughts on noise suppression pedals in relation to preserving tone?
Preserving tone with a noise suppression pedal. Well, luckily, if your noise suppression pedal is a simple audio circuit, as in like there's not a lot going on,
right?
You don't get a lot of like phase, delays being introduced, so your tone is pretty much the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, because like when I thought about like noise gate or noise suppression pedals, like the only degradation that I can think of is like when the release time is too slow or something. Like it doesn't like come back up in the right time. So like when you're trying to play kind of fast stuff, like some of the initial stuff kind of gets ducked.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
So what happens with a noise gate pedal, and there's a few different topologies, and I got to spend a lot of time last year working on something really cool in terms of a noise gate, so I know a little bit about these. I'm just making this up. But yeah, so your gate signal basically shuts down when you've got no input or an input below the threshold, and then once you play something, it swells back in. But the catch there is that you can't swell back in. You can't open that gate up until you know there's a signal there. So at some point you are playing some of your note is being played while the gate is low, and then it has to swell up. So you are risking losing just like a touch of that attack. So yeah, there is that. I don't know if that qualifies as tone exactly,
right?
But that's the attack of your note. That's the introduction of the note. So I think that's very important to characterize that accurately. So you want that to be very fast, like right away. Once it detects anything, it goes right up and lets that signal in. But other than that, the noise gates are really just a level control. So tone is not that big of a deal, or I mean, it's not that big of a risk. Let's say it's not at risk as much, other than those volume envelopes.
Okay. Next question. I just got a text, so like I got distracted. I was trying to read it. How big of an impact do a pedals components make on the tone, like electrical components? I think he means like the quality of like resistors and like
the resistors,
caps and whatnot.
Oh yeah, I mean I found that you need to use the most expensive part, and if you're not doing that, you're really like you're flipping the bird to your customers by not using the most expensive parts. Because they deserve to spend $12,000 a pedal.
Yep.
No. It is important to use, I don't know. So when I'm like picking electrical components, quality components, like the word quality, doesn't come up much actually. Because most of the parts that you're buying from like manufacturers, they're quality. Like quality basically means for a part or an electrical component, it does what it says it will do, or it does what the manufacturer says it will do in their spec sheet. So for me as an engineer, it's less about picking like quality parts, because they're all generally quality, but it's more about picking the right part. So if you're picking out a resistor, making sure that it's not going to fry because it has enough power handling capability, or if you're picking a capacitor, it's about making sure that the tolerances are good for the voltage. Like for example, if you take an electrolytic capacitor, for example, those will derate just a little bit based on how much voltage is applied to them, how much DC voltage is applied. So if you use them as like a filter capacitor between two sections of a circuit, and you have like 4.5 volts or something, across that capacitor, the capacitance of that part is actually going to decrease just a little bit. So you want to take that into account by not doing that, by finding a different part, like a film capacitor is going to be really great there. Or just knowing that, and knowing that deviation is going to happen in the part's value based on the circumstance in which you're using it. But the part itself is still quality. Like they say this is what's going to happen when you apply a DC voltage to this part, for example.
Right.
You just have to know that. What else is there? There are sometimes there's a worry about like knockoff parts, not knockoff, like if your manufacturer sources parts, like maybe old parts or from a source that's not providing the real part, that's a concern, but that's just kind of manufacturer's problem. You know, make sure they're using the right parts. I don't know, what have you heard about like quality components? Anything like people are concerned about?
I've heard like the different types of like caps, and people are kind of making a big deal about it. Like electrolytic versus like film or whatever, like or ceramic even. You know, like ceramic. What's better?
Yeah. I guess you've got a few different attributes, I suppose, for a different type of capacitor. So you've got like a resistance for a capacitor. I know, crazy. You have different resistance and inductance values that are implied with different types of capacitors, and they're less of, like, I don't want to say that they're bad qualities, because they're neither good nor bad. They're just how they
them,
are.
Yeah.
Exactly. So as a designer, if you know and compensate for any secondary attribute, like a series resistance or a series inductance or parallel inductance with a capacitor, for example, then it's not too big of a deal.
It's not necessarily like cutting corners just because you're saving a little bit of money on that.
Yeah. And at the end, like, I think you had a question about like cost at some point later, so we'll get to that. But one of my goals as a designer is to not use the really expensive rare parts that I don't need to use, because that's going to bump the cost up of the product. And in terms of like the Wampler pedals, they're not like really expensive, but they're also not cheap. They're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. And so I try to do my best to design around quality parts, if you can use that word, that are the least expensive, to get a very good quality sound without needing to use rare or expensive parts. So it's that's I think why we spend so much time in the design phases of things, is just that we want to make sure that we can use the right parts and get a good sound, and make a lot of them, because we're not making 2 or 3 of these. We can't just buy a few parts off of eBay and call it a day. We have to source tons of parts.
Consistently.
And so we want them all to be consistent. We want them all to be cost effective. And we want them to sound really, really good. So we spend a lot of time just kind of in the design phase and the part picking phase to make sure that we can accomplish all those goals.
Nice. Which one am I doing? How much does brand versus quality impact the cost of the pedal?
Oh yeah.
Essentially,
I have never been in a meeting where we said, this pedal could cost $150, but because it's X, Y, or Z brand, we're gonna make it cost $300. It's always a fight to get the final cost as low as possible. Without compromising, like obviously it's a steaming pile of garbage, but we want people to use the stuff. Basically, when it comes down to it, we want to eat, but we want people to use.
You want them to be accessible.
Yeah, we want people to use the products, because we really like them. We're not going to release something that we don't like.
Right.
And so we think these things are really great, and so we want to share that. So when it comes to like cost, we're never bumping up the cost just because. Yeah. Now when it comes to like the cost of, so where do those costs come from?
Right.
It's let's talk about the electronics. So the circuit boards that we're using are standard 4-layer boards, and we use that because we can isolate some of the power in the ground layers better, and we can have more ground electrical layers, which actually reduce noise a lot more. It goes back to that noise thing, is that we want to make sure that the pedals are as noiseless as possible. So we use 4-layer boards, PCBs, as opposed to 2 layers. And so that marginally increases the cost of the board. Another thing is that we have to fit so many components onto the boards. We're trying to do lots of controls, lots of little switches, even the soft touch foot switch with the true bypass stuff. That's a whole extra circuit that you didn't have 10 years ago when you're using only 3 PDT switches to just switch, because that kind of handles it for you.
Right.
And the stuff like the Terraform has got so many different layers on it. So you've got an audio layer, which is handling the analog front end, the analog back end. You have the DSP, which is its own monster of a circuit. And then with something like the Terraform, we had a lot of digital control elements. So you've got like all those knobs, all the LEDs, the switches, the MIDI, the expression pedal stuff, and all of the presets and all the extra control to make that work is like, it's probably the biggest section of that product actually. And then you just have the power and making sure we have all of the appropriate capacitors and power handling to handle powering that whole little beast. And so all of those costs add up just from components, trying to make those circuits work. What other costs are there? We got the enclosure.
We got the enclosure, the actual circuit board, R&D.
R&D, yeah.
Distribution, like you have to like give them cuts.
I actually have no idea. I'm blessed to not be a part of that conversation.
What else is there?
Yeah, the enclosure. Actually, the enclosures for most of the pedals we've done so far, for Wampler anyway, have been like that Hammond style enclosure. So that's I think that's cast aluminum, which is pretty. I think that's more inexpensive. I don't actually do that part of the cost, so I can't say. But I do know that the Terraform enclosure was completely custom. So we made that one from scratch because we wanted it to be different. We wanted it to be cool. And we kind of also needed to do it to fit all of the different little paneled controls that we had on there. So, that custom is going to bump the cost up just a little bit. We used, I really like the knobs that we used on that one.
Yeah, was it like a rotary switch or something?
There's a little rotary switch, a detented potentiometer. Yeah, so the cost of the pedal, and then, you've got the graphics because...
I was about to actually ask, because do you guys have like a graphic person?
Oh yeah, we do.
We
got
dedicated
to
doing
two graphics people, and they work pretty hard because we're pretty picky, which is a pretty funny thing to say considering that Brian and I are both not graphic design artists in the stretch. So it's kind of like our graphics team will say, "Hey, do you like this?" And we're like, No, try again. And they'll say, "Can you give us any direction?" We're like, no, make it look better. So we're not great to work with, so bless them. But we also want the products to look good, which is very important. Which is weird to say, if you think that we're in a audio brand, we're designing things that you hear, not things that you look at.
But it's like I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. You want to play things that like you want to play.
That's
it has
true.
to be like visually appealing. For me, anyways, like I'm kind of like the vibey.
Yeah. I know. I've got that. I don't know. I'm a little shallow. I want my gear to look good. I want it to have the same aesthetic.
Yeah.
That I try to have, because if you're playing out, the gear that you use kind of reflects yourself. So if you're whatever guitar you're playing, kind of says something about you. Like if you're maybe a hard rock and roll, probably not going to play a pretty pink Hello Kitty guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, no judgment, but that's probably not your vibe. And so people want their gear to sort of reflect the same thing too. So we try to make that look good, and try to have some fun with it too. Like we're not in a life or death industry, as many would have you believe. So we try to make it fun, have some cool graphics.
All right. Okay, we got to the monster question here. This is like 4-part question, but it's like all in one.
All right, cool.
So he says, I hear tube distortion is superior. Is it more important to have a tube stage in the preamp stage or in the power amp section? If the preamp section is the crucial place to get a good distortion sound, why are overdrive pedals all mostly solid state? And then can we just use a solid state amp with high headroom to like get this sound?
Yeah.
Get the good sound from the pedal.
A lot of exclamation marks, or no, question marks.
It's a very aggressive
What?
question. It's like, why can't we do it?
Tubes. Okay. Being a mostly digital designer.
Oh,
I have a good answer on this.
We should put that in the subtitle. Jake, mostly digital design.
Mostly. That's a good. No, so I think in my experience, which is really all that we have to talk about, is not my experience, but like our own experiences.
Yeah.
And the experience I've heard from most people that I talk to about tubes is that the preamp tube stage is going to give you a lot more of your sonic characteristic, your tone, your sound. much more than your power amps, where those are designed to really just prepare your sound for the speaker, and maybe and generally have less of an effect as the preamp. So preamp might do like 95% of the work and of your sound, your tone anyway, and then the power amp will it'll color it. We're not saying that it's not it doesn't have an effect, but so I think that's why people might say tube distortion is superior in that preamp stage.
So you think when you're, because we had the discussion with Brian as well, he was saying even the amp is clean, you're still getting a little bit of overdrive or a compression from the tube.
Absolutely. I mean, and you can test this out if you just listen to if you listen to the clean guitar output or the clean output just from your guitar, into headphones or something. It is really boring, incredibly boring. Which to me, as a side note, is incredible that we can make the guitar sound like all the things that we do. Because just electric guitar, very, very dull sounding. So you put it into even just a clean preamp stage and a clean power amp stage. You're adding a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of weight to that sound, even though it's clean. And then you're gonna add other things that you get from tubes, little bits of compression, more warmth, just a little bit of harmonics. They're very subtle, but
are all of these coming from preamp section or power amp section then?
I would say preamp.
Mostly preamp?
Mostly preamp. The power amp's gonna do what the power amp does, but I think most of your character would come from preamp. So even a clean amplifier is still doing a lot of work. And then you get those tonal colorations from all that work that it's doing.
Oh, interesting.
Which we like. We like that
right,
sound.
Exactly.
And if you like it, you like it. So I guess it started I guess that wasn't a question. I hear tube distortion is superior.
Is it more important to you? Okay.
That wasn't a question, I guess.
So the second section is if preamp section is the crucial place to get a good. Oh my god. Okay, if preamp section is the crucial place to get good distortion sound, why are overdrive pedals mostly solid state?
Oh, so if
the tube is so good.
Oh yeah, so if the tube is so great, why on earth?
Why JFET? Why
JFETs? Why op amps? Why diodes? I guess I have two ideas for this. One is that if you try to fit a tube into a pedal and then power it, you're probably gonna fry something.
Take notes.
Take notes. You know how there are many more pedal builders than amp builders? It's because it's safer and easier. No, but I think that's the only reason why. I think if we could fit tubes very easily into pedals, we would do it. I
heard something about I'm not very versed in that field, that area, but I heard that the supplying voltage has to do a lot with the proper operation of tubes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Starve plate and whatnot,
Yes, you need a lot of power and a lot of voltage. You need a lot of voltages. You just need a very high number of volts to get and power to get the tubes to operate in a likable, pleasing fashion. So your typical pedal is running off of 9 volts DC, but your amps are getting that 120 AC from your wall.
Juicy power.
So usually we don't use those in pedals. But why do we use solid state, and why does that give us such a good sound? I would say, and this is just my personal opinion, well, you're here to listen to my personal opinion,
exactly.
So here you go. Is that I think that the two sound very good when married together. So if you take some solid state overdrive and you pair it with some good tube, distortion and compression, you get a very, very good sound. I think it would be silly to say that one is better than the other, therefore you should only use that one kind. Because in my opinion, putting both together sounds fantastic, And so going back to that question about, what was it about the clean amp? Or you asked about, does a clean affect the sound?
Yeah, right.
And even though it's clean, it doesn't mean that it's not it's not being performed by a tube stage that can sound really, really good when you hit it really hard. So if you take a distortion pedal and you run it into a clean tube amp, you can get some really good sound because you're pairing that that really jagged solid state distortion or drive with a slight compression and some sparkle from your clean tube amp, and you get like a really, really nice sound. So I think if you just run tube distortion, you're going to get a tube distortion sound, and if you just run solid state distortion, you're going to get that kind of solid state sound. But you run both, and that's personally my favorite sound is to get like an amp just about to break up, and then
run pedals
and
through
then just run some pedals.
It's like
into
a different sound than like getting a multi-channel amp and just get all the distortions from the amp.
Yeah, it's a different sound, and honestly, there's no to get really what's the word I'm looking for? Very not abstract, but my basic idea is that if you like it, you like it. If other people like it, they like it.
If it sounds good, it's good.
And if it sounds good, it sounds good. Like if I think maybe there's part of that lifestyle that we like to.
Right.
I want to have my tube amp, and I want to have all analog stuff. But honestly, like if you can plug into, like
X-Effects.
Like X-Effects, and you can get a really good sound that you like, that other people like. That's all. Well, if it matters to you, like if your goal is to live that rock and roll lifestyle with the amp, like go for it. If that's what you want to do, then do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are more concerned with getting like a particular sound that you can get with that kind of gear, then that's what you want to do. And neither's right or wrong. It's just about what you want. So yeah. So more power to you. Whatever you want to do.
Nice.
And there's gear for it, Yeah. We thrive off people doing what they want to do.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to knock anybody for doing what they like.
That's awesome. Yeah, the last part we kind of like already answered. Like, is that can we just use a solid state amp with a high head drum? Kind of already answered it in a way that like two clean amplifiers already kind of has the tubes imposing their own character.
Yeah, the tubes are already doing some work that you don't get with the solid state.
Yeah, so that's already like a different palette, I guess, than solid state amps as a platform. So thanks for taking time to answer.
We got to do the bump. No Namthrax.
No Namthrax.
No Namthrax.
Exactly. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next month. No, he won't be back next month. I'll be back next month.